housekeeping rules to start with. If I can ask everyone to keep themselves on mute for the bulk of the presentation this morning. I think it will keep just make for a better experience for everyone. You'll probably hear people joining us throughout, so if we can reduce the background noise for everyone, probably a better experience. We will have a question and answer session as well towards the end of the event. So if there is anything that springs to mind, any questions that you want to ask during the event, you can pop them into the chat box. And what we will do is we'll try and cover them off towards the end of the event. We will also, we'd encourage you towards the end of the event as well to take yourself off mute and to ask any questions. But just to focus on what we're going to cover at this event this morning, as you know, the event is titled Accounting for a Better World, Building Sustainable Business and Finance Professionals. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at some of our research on sustainability and climate change. We're then going to follow with an overview on the ACCA Learning Platform, and then look at some of the relevant sustainability and climate certificates that we would really encourage you to look at, and as individual members or as organisations to take them forward and really skill yourself up in this area. We've got a number of testimonials throughout the event as well from our ACCA members who are based in employers throughout Ireland and the UK, and I'd like to thank everyone who's participated in the testimonials this morning. We have some pre-recorded and some live, so a lot of effort's gone into the pre-recorded, and people have joined us early this morning to make sure that they can actually provide a live overview as well. We'll move on to next steps at that stage. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to our policy and insights team for the next 15 minutes or so. The policy and insights team are going to cover how ready people are for sustainability and climate change, with a focus on our industry, obviously, the role of the finance professional, and key changes and legislation that people need to be aware of. So Sharon, I'm going to hand over to you if you're ready to take it away.
Thanks, Stephen. So firstly, hello everybody, and I'm going to start off with a quote. So Peter Baker, who many of us probably do know, is the president of the World Business Council for Sustainable Development, and he once said, accountants can save the world. I'm going to temper that a little bit and say that we have a really important role, and we do and can save the world with other professionals. And some progress has been made, but there's certainly more to do. And if we can just click, please. So today in our agenda, I'm going to cover a few things. Firstly, the outline of the regulatory landscape, because that's a key thing that we do within policy and insights. The second thing that I'm going to cover is readiness of professionals for sustainability-led transformation and indeed reporting. I'm then going to move on to the role of skills and what professionals really need to be doing. And then finally, Emmeline is going to cover our climate finance research, which supports the CPD that I believe Fiona is going to talk about a little bit later on. So if we can move to the next slide, thank you. And the first agenda item, regulation and reporting. So regulation. The ISSB was formed as a consolidation of SASB, IRC and CDSB. So if we can just click and we can see where those three organisations come in. And I know that there are a lot of acronyms here, so we will pop into the chats what these different organisations actually are, so you can just check them out a little bit later on. But the International Sustainability Standards Board is under the umbrella of the IFRS Foundation, and we influence quite a lot of their work. The good thing about the Sustainability Standards Board being underneath the foundation is the fact that it then means that sustainability related information and financial information is likely to be more connected, and that's good for us as preparers, but also for our users. The sustainability standards have investors as their main audience, and what that means is that they're biased towards sustainability impact on finance. But that's not to say that these standards don't require organisations to think about other stakeholders. So we are required to think about environment and society, but really as far as they impact and can dynamically impact what happens in finance. Now, there are two draft standards out at the moment, and they're due to be finalised at the towards the summer of this year. The first standard that they've got is around general reporting requirements. So therefore, to identify, and what these general reporting requirements cover is identifying the material sustainability risks and opportunities. And then what these standards also cover is, well, you've got to report on your strategy that you're going to implement, governance, risks management, and business model implications. So therefore, if you're sitting here thinking, well, I'm not a corporate reporter, this is not for me, you know, you're wrong. And the reason why you're wrong, thinking that this is only about reporting, is because a lot of organisations, as a result of this regulation and this policy that's coming through, are now starting to think about what their sustainability strategy actually is. It's forcing the development of processes, controls, and systems. Beyond the general reporting requirements are going to be thematic standards, and the first one is out relating to climate reporting that has very specific metrics and targets. So therefore, there are new data requirements that are coming through. This is something else for accountants to be thinking about. Change is also coming, unfortunately, not just at a global level, but also within Europe. And within Europe, they're moving at a really, really fast pace. So together with their majorly updated corporate reporting directive, they've issued a whole bunch of sustainability reporting standards. And these standards cover environmental, social, and governance topics. And to come will be sector-specific disclosures, as well as those for small and medium-sized enterprises. Now, what's really different is that the ESRSs require this concept of double materiality. So therefore, organisations need to be thinking about the impact of our actions on the resources and the stakeholders that we draw these resources from, not just finance, and of course, them on you. Now, whether you're reporting according to international sustainability standards or those from Europe, companies are going to have to report on the entire value chain. And what that means is that small and medium-sized suppliers that are within the value chain of larger companies will need to provide ESG information too. So therefore, it's not just big boys that are affected by this. SMEs in due course will have their own sustainability reporting standards. Let's move on to our next slide, and you should just see a visual of the double materiality, so the difference. But next slide, please. Okay. Now, when we think about the number of companies that are affected, and I did, apologies, I did pick this up, so I forgot to say next slide, apologies. So next slide again. So drivers. Regulation reporting is just one driver, but there are others. So let's consider them. Next slide. So the 6 resources, or in other words, capitals and their providers, really do impact how business happens. So that's that double materiality thing I was talking about. And our research and that of others have found that if we think about investors, so if we can just click on that, an example of this, analysis by Bloomberg have really highlighted how important investors actually are. And ESG investment, for example, in 2022 has soared to around 37 trillion US dollars, and it's expected to grow within the next 3 years to around 53 trillion US dollars. So basically about a third of global assets under management. Further, finance from sustainability focused banks such as Ando have proven to be 27 times more impactful at reducing environmental impact compared to reduced travel, meat, water consumption. And not only do they provide finance, but they're a great source of guidance to all businesses, especially SMEs. But if you want to access their finance, you need to comply with their criteria and provide sustainability reporting. If we then click on and think about consumers and employees. So a McKinsey study actually released today found that 57% of consumers wanted to lessen their environmental impact, with 60% taking action. And this is confirmed by our own survey of over 3,000 professionals who told us that consumer and environmental pressure were in their top 3 drivers for change, and regulation that I've talked about being number 1. Now, let's just click on. So operational drivers, I'll touch in a second, and regulation, as I said, I've just picked up on. So we can then move to our next slide. Awareness raising. So turning to action, a lot of the work that we do within Policy Insights is about raising awareness and driving action. And so our COP26 research conducted in 2021 is still relevant, and it sets the scene for what Emmeline is going to be talking about a little bit later on. And what the findings indicate is that organisations are giving little consideration to environmental and social risks. So back to that survey of over 3,000 professionals.
You've gone on mute.
You're on mute. Yeah. I think someone's clicked me on mute. Apologies, because I didn't touch anything. Right. So in operations, regulatory compliance, and with regards to finance and consumer pressure. So there's a real disconnect there. So our work, once again, at ACCA is about campaigns involving members, involving business, policy and regulatory institutions. And our research that you can see on the right-hand side on readiness for climate reporting is just one example. So what we found is that accountants really do have a role in better connecting ESG information to finance. We also have a role of better supporting user understanding through better presentation, more consistent presentation, because today sustainability reporting information is scattered across annual reports and inconsistent with what's going on in websites and marketing. So there's a real risk of greenwashing. Now, those companies that adopt TCFD sustainability reporting are better equipped to meet new reporting requirements, for example, from the Sustainability Standards Board. But all companies want guidance, and therefore, as accountants, we really need to be here to advise on the requirements and new techniques, for example, like scenario analysis that's required for risk assessment. Next slide. So hopefully I've made the role of the professional much clearer, but if not, let's have a look at a little bit more detail, picking up on another piece of our research. Thank you for moving on. So the purpose of the profession is unchanged, and it's create, protect and communicate with integrity. And this happens across 4 career zones. The first being transformation, so developing strategy and implementing it, for which data and insight is used, so therefore the enterprise analyst, for transformation and reporting needs. Then in terms of reporting for internal and external purposes, and then assuring. So if we can move on to the next slide. We articulate the skills and the role, indeed, within our career navigator for students and members, so that they can see the 4 career zones and they can see the skills that they need to get to conduct their role in those 4 career zones well, and how to get those skills through qualification and CPD. What we also do is provide a source of resource for current job vacancies, so therefore jobs that are recruiting in a particular skills area. Sustainability is at the heart of the Career Navigator, and it's all about the integrated thinking capability, and it's a key skill that employers are asking for. So we can move on to the next slide. And if you're not sure in terms of what I've just said, I'll give you a quick example. So one of the people that we spoke to, Stefan from BASF, he talked about the integration of IT skills with environmental science and accountancy models, from which they developed their integrated carbon footprint tool. And this tool is used to drive better business because the tool helps the business and their customers understand and manage carbon impact. And that was something that Professor Mervyn King, that's famous for integrated thinking, was talking about, because he was talking about connecting resources across functions and business operations from which to drive sustainable value. So what BASF did is aligned to my own research. Next slide. The research was termed Professional Accountants at the Heart, Changing Business for the Planet. And by the way, those little links at the bottom of the slides will take you to all of the research that I've been talking about. The output was 4 guides, one for each of the 4 career zones. And the guides explain that professionals need to consider environmental dependency and impact of the business model across the organisation's value chain. So similar to what sustainability reporting requirements are calling for. And that value chain, if you look at the left-hand side, is really starting from cradle, raw materials, to grave, consumer and end use. And the value chain is ideally circular. So therefore, the end use for us is a raw material for another purpose or another business. Now, the analysis and transformer professionals should be considering questions of, well, what is the impact of raw material sourcing and processing on the environment, communities and finance? Is the waste we produce a problem? What are the opportunity costs, and how do customers use and dispose of our products? And the answers will drive strategy and solutions. And that's what you can see in the centre visual, which is taken from the fashion industry, where we can see that raw materials processing, end use, processing are a real problem from a perspective of land, water, energy use, pollution and energy, because the circles on the visual are bigger. And so therefore, that's why we see strategies in fashion for responsible sourcing, slow fashion and recycling. And it's from here that business solutions can be developed. So, for example, business model changes, controls. And on the right-hand side is an example that I've taken from Lee and Fung, who are a logistics business. And through assessment of their value chain, just like we've seen here, they created integrated environmental and financial SLAs, so service level agreements for their suppliers, which they report externally, with A being the best suppliers and F being the worst. And you can see a journey because there's a trend analysis showing a number of years. And it's this type of strategy, governance, risk management and reporting that sustainable business-minded stakeholders are asking for. So if we move on to the next slide and my final slide, I've covered quite a few examples of our varied work. And as I mentioned, these slides I think will be available after the session, so you can click on the links to find out more. But my final point that I'd like to make is that as a professional body, we have a duty of care to be a role model. And so we've made commitments to the UN SDGs and net zero, which we communicate in our integrated report, which we've had, I believe, since 2013. And we are transitioning to sustainability reporting. So therefore, hopefully we provide a good example of actually what is happening in that future space. And with no further ado, I'll pass on to Emily.
Thank you, Sharon. So, as we heard from Sharon, climate change and the journey to net zero is going to impose significant costs on economies in the coming decades. And although the total costs and the allocations of these costs between and within countries are really uncertain due to lots of things. Next slide, please. Shown on my diagram, if you can look, we've got things like the Ukraine conflict, we've got inflation pressures. Although organisations understand the importance of these targets, our members which were surveyed are really concentrating on firefighting all of these current operational challenges. A quarter of our survey respondents are expecting to extend their timeline to reach net zero. And over half of our respondents feel that cost inflation would mean that organisations will need to now change its strategy in reaching net zero. So organisations are currently finding themselves in a position where they're unable to demonstrate their green credentials. And this is a problem in, like Sharon spoke to before, about the access of green finance. Now, the demand for sustainable investment is growing, and finance professionals, members must have a deep understanding of how this affects their sectors, their clients, and the world at large. So an upcoming report from PI is called Green Skills, the Complete Guide. This really examines the role of green finance in reaching net zero, because today it is critical that business understands green finance innovations and blended finance options to actually transition to net zero. May we go to the next slide, please? So I'm going to speak briefly about access to green finance. We surveyed our members again, and we noticed that organisations are globally attaching more importance to environmental factors. Even though organisations expect significant change in business practices in order to meet net zero targets, they need more support to increase access to and awareness and knowledge of green finance products. And the good news is over 63% of our members surveyed are already starting this green finance journey. And this is really encouraging, but more support is needed if we're going to increase awareness and knowledge of green finance products, which help business transition to net zero. It's a great opportunity for the profession to lead organisations in achieving this, and actually in doing so, transforming them into a sustainable organisation, which Sharon spoke about before. It's all about creating long-term value. So what are green finance products? They present organisations with the opportunities to access cheaper capital and for stakeholders to invest in green assets. And this helps to deliver sustainable development initiatives. And this can enable positive environmental outcomes, meaning social impacts and stronger governance, while providing competitive rates of return. So examples of green finance products such as green bonds, sustainable linked loans, it's a whole variety which I'll later talk about. Fiona will mention in the course, which we talk about. Next slide, please. So green skills. Our research actually revealed lots of organisations lack the skills and expertise to develop and implement robust ESG strategies. Now, many organisations are addressing this talent scarcity by significant upskilling or external recruitment from a highly competitive market with a small pool of experts. But what we want to emphasise is that the accountancy, the professionals are equipped with these skills needed for the analysis, monitoring and reporting of ESG related financial and non-financial data. So what does this look like? This includes the cost benefit analysis and identification of risks and opportunities, particularly to the organisation. The profession are also expected more and more by society in general to grasp the fundamentals of carbon accounting and pricing. Our survey also found that businesses feel underinformed on climate finance opportunities and climate risk management. So this is why we believe that the ACCA platform is crucial in supporting finance professionals on their role in helping organisations develop well-structured and de-risk sustainable development initiatives and a portfolio of greener assets. So green finance today should be business as usual and forms part of the organisation's transformation to operate as a sustainable business model. So this is just a little snippet of what's coming up in the latest green skills research. But Fiona, I'm going to pass over to Fiona, who is going to talk about the CPD in green finance. Thank you.
Emmeline, I just to jump in there, I believe Victoria, we have Victoria Gillespie, head of ESG at the JCT group, and she's going to give us just a couple of words from a hiring manager's perspective around skills benefits. So if I can ask you to join us very briefly, Victoria.
Hiya, thank you very much. Indeed, so I think it's really interesting what we're here to discuss, because JTC, the company that I work for, is a FTSE listed business. So we have different viewpoints within the realms of sustainability. So from a hiring manager perspective, we have to consider and look at what would the skill set be required within the company that need to face off with the investors, but also our clients, and then wider within the ESG services team as well. So we have different facets of looking at this of different guises, depends on where people are. But the common theme throughout is that actually what we found when we're generally looking to hire is actually there's an underlying theme of commonality, in that we're asking people to understand what do we mean by carbon, and those roles can vary. But for us, we're looking at the skill set in terms of hiring. It's really crucial for people to understand what's going on in the world, but also what role they play in that. And what we found is that having just a general baseline understanding of sustainability is really useful no matter what the role.
Thanks very much, Victoria. So I'll just pick up here. So what Victoria is talking about there in terms of the skills for sustainability, you will find all of this on our ACCA learning platform. So this covers all of our courses, but if you move on a slide, please, Angie. Today I'm going to focus on the certificate for sustainability in finance, and then followed by the certificate for climate finance. So if you move on to the next slide, please, Angie. So the certificate in sustainability for finance then includes 5 different courses, and in total is around about 16 hours worth of CPD and learning. The courses break down into an introduction into sustainability. We look at climate finance and reporting. We also look at the SDGs and their impact, and as well as the ESG performance and metrics, and then we also look at some sustainability analytics. So the idea behind this course is that you and your teams will have the skills, knowledge and confidence to lead conversations on sustainability and looking at the issues that you may have in your organisation. All of our courses are built on the basis of the research that has been produced, so you can be sure that they're completely up to date as well. And these courses are also pretty interactive in terms of how you learn, and it's experiential learning as well. So this means that talking to one another, understanding, making comments, talking around your organisation will really make a difference to how you can go about embedding this within your organisations. Now, to get the certificate in sustainability in finance, there's an online assessment, and you must complete 25 multiple choice questions. Now we've got a video here of a guy, so we want to hear what he's saying. So this is Paul Farris, who is the General Manager of Accounting for BMW Finance, and he talks about what his skills requirements were in his organisation and how they were met by completing this certificate. So you want to play the video, please, Angie. Thank you. We can't hear it, Angie.
You can't hear it, you say?
We can't hear it.
Sorry, Angie, we just lost the slides there.
You see the slides now?
I can see the slides. Yeah, if you want to try again.
Right, let's try again.
Hello, my name is Paul Farris and I'm the General
working,
Manager
thanks.
for Accounting at BMW Financial Services Group UK. Towards the end of 2021, I was discussing with our ACCA Business Development Manager the upcoming developments within the accounting landscape and the desire within my department to learn more around the area of ESG criteria and awareness regarding climate-related reporting. Fortunately, the ACCA had recently developed the certificate in sustainable finance, and I guess this is where our journey began. Jenny, our BDM, and I discussed the content format and assessed the suitability of the course for my team. And what I realised pretty quickly was that this course may well have appeal not just for those working in the accounting field, but also to the wider finance team and have benefits for those working in all facets of finance and beyond. So after the ACCA supporting the communication and introduction to our teams, quite quickly we were in a position to offer the ACCA Certificate in Sustainable Finance to all employees working in the finance area across all levels of the business. And the response was great. Soon we had over 50 people signed up for the course from a wide-ranging skill set and departments. So at the beginning of last year, the course was made available for people to start completing the various modules, and the feedback I was getting was really encouraging. The platform was easy to navigate, the content was engaging and made it simple for participants to dip in and out as they work through. The course provided knowledge checks to facilitate understanding, interactive course materials, and also links to external websites which people could use to explore in more detail. The course provided a really solid grounding into how business professionals could start to navigate the area of sustainability, and it was equally useful to non-accountants as it was to accountants, and I was really pleased that we were able to open this learning opportunity up for those working outside of the immediate accounting field. For accountants, of course, it gave key insight and strong framework to provide a leading role in developing climate-related reporting in the business. And of course, as we had numerous people undertaking the course simultaneously, it sparked conversations and ideas across the business. So overall, I would certainly recommend the Certificate in Sustainable Finance. It provides the gateway to some really good insights around sustainability from a finance perspective, and starts those conversations around business regarding reporting requirements for climate-related disclosures. Thanks very much.
You can see there that Paul is talking about how it benefited not just his team, but the actual organisation as a whole because of the conversations that they were having. If you move on to the next slide, please, Angie. So this is our certificate in climate finance. So here you'll see that it's combined of 6 modules. It takes around a total of 10 hours to complete. And these modules go through from introducing climate change and climate finance into discussing the policies, the governance and disclosures, as well as looking at some carbon pricing and accounting. It looks also at some sustainable business modules, value chains and the sustainable economy. And at the end, there's a couple of modules there around tools for integrating climate risk into investments and portfolios. So overall, completing this module will give you and your teams the skills and knowledge to help navigate the complex challenges that are brought about by climate change. It'll help us all to drive, lead the change towards a more sustainable future, and it will equip everyone with the practical skills that are required in order to be successful in the organisations, and your organisations are sustainable as well. So in order to get this certificate, there's an online assessment and you must complete 20 multiple choice questions as well. Thanks very much. I'm going to pass back over to Stephen now because there's a couple more people who are going to come in and talk about these certificates. Thank you.
Fiona, thank you very much for that. I'm just going to invite, we've got Sarah Jane O'Keefe from Baker Tilly, Ireland, and we've got Tony Down from Langstone Advisory. We're just going to give, I guess, an endorsement or an overview. They've recently completed certificates and they're going to talk through the benefits of the certificates and why they would recommend it from both from a member and an employer perspective. So Sarah Jane, if I can ask you to, if you can take yourself, you turn your camera on and maybe just give us a few words of recommendation, that would be fantastic.
Yes, no problem, Stephen. Hi, good morning, everybody, and thanks for having me here. So I've recently completed the certificate in sustainability and finance, and I've done a few of actually the ACCA certificates. I work in the corporate governance and compliance department at Baker Tilly, and I'm also act as a liquidator and examiner as well. So I get both sides of the house. I've always had an interest in ESG and sustainability. And I suppose it comes up quite often with business owners who were advising on their future and what that looks like forward, and also the governance and how they practice also. And how they can be accountable for their future and their footprint also. So when I decided to do further study in the area, I came across ACCA certificate and the modules seemed to hit, I suppose, everything that I was looking for from an introduction to the area. and how I could possibly grow the area within Baker Tilly as well. So what I found from the certificate is it's very interactive. There's questions, I suppose, at each end of the modules. There is videos throughout each module as well, which I found quite useful. And you know what, it's not a big task each evening to go in and do after a long days of work, which I found quite useful as well. For me, you know, having a family and working full time as well, you know, I found that each module was separated quite well, so I could do an hour here and there in the evening, and I just found that very useful after a long day of work. So for me, you know, I would totally recommend it. I found it quite useful, and I hope to grow the area internally in Baker Tilly, and this has given me a real flavour for what that will look like within Baker Tilly as well. So I look forward to working with clients on that.
Thanks, Sarah Jane. And Tony, if I could ask you to maybe give a couple of words in terms of recommendation and your experience.
Yeah, thank you, Stephen, and thank you, Sarah Jane, for that that endorsement as well. So I think I completed the certificate in sustainability about a year ago. I think it was February 22. I actually completed it, and when I started it, I've always felt that I've done my bit. You know, I've always felt that I've been quite environmentally friendly. You know, I feel I'm quite a nice guy. So the social impact, looking after people's interests have been quite important. And as accountants, of course, governance is really high on our agenda. That's really important. So I felt that I've done my bit. So when the certificate, when it was marketed, and I picked up on it, and I felt, right, I feel like I'd really be interested in having a go at that. I think at the same time, there was a lot of information from ACCA about the UN 17 SDGs. So I thought, no, I really need to do a certificate, and it was really, it was beyond my expectations. I think that's all I can say. I really enjoyed doing the courses. I think I did a little bit more than the 20 hours. It took a little bit of time for me, but the videos were very engaging. The whole of the course was very engaging. It was broken down easily, and I really enjoyed the course. But what I got from it more than anything else is that I felt I was doing my bit, but there was a lot more that I could do. So you know, things like the triple bottom line, the 3 Ps, the people, the profit, people, planet, engaging with my existing client base, taking on new clients, working with the team around me, that's all improved. So we're really careful now what the clients that we take on. We really want to help them to grow, but we want to help them to grow sustainably, not just their profit, but also how they're engaged with the community, the impact on the planet as well. So that's really helped our business to grow, and has helped us to help other businesses to grow as well, and also people's well-being, working with the people in our team and our other stakeholders as well. That's all improved, and we can see an impact. So that's been really helpful. So I would really encourage people to take the course, and I'm interested in fact in taking the climate finance as well. So that'd be good.
Tony, that's fabulous. Thank you very much for those words of endorsement. Just handing over to Jenny. Jenny, I know you've got just a slide there on next steps and how people will need to sign up individually, or what the process is if organisations want to book in bulk.
Lovely, thanks, Stephen. So I can also answer some of the questions that I can see coming in the chat. So the certificates are relevant across all sectors. It's not just for corporate or practice individuals, it's for anybody, including public sector. And I will also cover off the prices because I can see that that's in the chat as well. So ACCA members, the price is £200 for the certificate in sustainable finance. If you're a non-ACCA member, then it's £255. And that's something that I would stress, actually, that this is relevant for anybody. So you don't have to be an ACCA member in order to take the certificate. And I think that's where the value really comes, because you can look at doing this as a group and really learn together together and understand how you can embed that knowledge for your organisation. So if you are an individual signing up, then you can go to the ACCA Learning Hub. But there is also an opportunities here for groups, and that's where we have seen some real value for organisations. So if you are part of a team and you think there's other members of your team that would be interested in any of our certificates, then please do reach out to us, because we can provide a preview access to look at the certificates and also some bulk purchase discounts as well. It might be an employer who knows that there are teams of individuals within the organisation as well, and of course please do reach out to us as well for that. We can organise invoice payments for employers too. If you know your business development manager at ACCA, then please make contact with them. If not, don't worry, then Angie will be happy to receive an email, and Angie's email address is angie.daden@acccaglobal.com, as you can see up on the screen. And we're just going to finish finally with another little video. This is Laura Kelly from Grant Thornton in Ireland. If you could play the video, please, Angie.
So when I first heard about ACCA's sustainability certificate, I thought this is the perfect opportunity to upskill in the whole area of sustainability and better understand the ESG landscape and what value us as accountants can add to businesses and indeed the world into the future. I really enjoyed how this course brought everything back to basics for a self-confessed sustainability ESG novice. There's quite a lot of regulatory information already out there, so this course started from the very beginning, explaining the landscape, the timeline surrounding the regulatory roadmap to date, as well as the next steps, and touched on real tangible reporting metrics and data analytics accountants need to be ready to prepare and prepared to report on. So this learning is invaluable for me and anyone in the accounting space. Our role as accountants is rapidly transforming, and we need to make sure we're ready to meet new reporting asks on all of us and to ensure we're adding as much value as possible. So the new Corporate Sustainability Reporting Directive, or the CSRD, passed by the EU in November 2022 will mean already we'll have 50,000 firms or companies in the EU reporting on a double materiality basis for the first time in their financial statements. And this is just the beginning. The scope is to be expanded. So if you're not up to speed, start today. I would 100% recommend this course to others. If, like me last year, you know you need to get up to speed on ESG and sustainability, but there's so much out there you just don't know where to start, this is the course for you. It's the call to action we all need to ensure we're both ready for regulatory change and additional expectations in our future accounting roles. And we also need to ensure we're doing our bit to be better citizens of the world, safeguarding our planet for our children and future generations.
Okay, we're just reaching 9:15, coming towards the end of the event this morning. Just to say that we're about to time out, so any questions that do come in the chat or have come in that we haven't gotten to, we will reply to them offline and answer directly on them. So if you do have any questions, by all means, do use the chat, and we will come back to you on them. Just in terms of follow up, you will receive an email over the next while, just with next steps. Again, how you can reach out to PDMs in the Irish market or the UK market. So Angie will be point of contact, but we'll make sure that we get all the queries that come into us, and that we can follow up them. You will also receive a copy of the slides, so you can spend a little bit more time analysing what we've gone through this morning. So finally, just to wrap up and say thank you to everyone for joining us. I do acknowledge that there was probably more noise coming in from the waiting room than we had expected. It seems to be an MS Teams glitch this morning. We were not able to turn that off, so we do apologise that, but I hope you found the information and the detail that we shared this morning very insightful and useful. Again, you will receive an email with the slides and next steps, and we do look forward to hearing from you over the next while. And we really do encourage and hope to see both businesses sign up in bulk and individual members. We do want this industry skilled up in terms of sustainability, and we really feel that we can help you with the next steps. So thank you and have a good day.
Thank you, everyone.